Good afternoon, everyone. I see folks joining, so as always, we'll just give them about 30 seconds and then we'll get underway. Okay, folks, we're going to get started. We have a big group today. We're going to be in listen-only mode just to be respectful of everybody's audio experience. Thank you all for joining us. We're very excited to be with you today. We've got some really good information to share with you. If you're on this call, actually, let me share my screen real quick. How about that, huh? You think I can pull that off, Kristen? Okay, are we seeing website?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're joining this call, I don't have to tell you that personal lines property has been particularly challenging for this past year. And what we bring to you today is hopefully a partial solution to that. I want to set the stage here a little bit before I turn this over to Kristen Butcher, our head of operations, who's joining me today. We have a few new products to introduce today, and I want to just get out there at the outset. We are going to be talking about non-admitted products, so surplus lines, agency build, not what you would characterize as a brush market. And I say that out front because we've gotten a lot of questions about that. So while there is some appetite for properties, in mountainous areas and so forth, we are not thinking of this and putting it forth as a quote unquote brush market or brush solution. Having said that, middle of last year, roughly, we were presented with the opportunity to build a brand new system to deliver these products, and that's exactly what we've done. And Kristen's put a tremendous amount of effort into this over the past, call it 7-8 months. And because it's brand new, we built this from the ground up. The portal you're about to see is bespoke to our office. Because it's brand new, we're releasing it in phases. And what we did first is we had just a handful of customers that signed up to provide feedback and test the system. So those folks went through some of the pain that hopefully you will not have to, because we've fixed some of the early bugs and introduced some additional features to make use of the system much more easy. So we've just come out of the beta testing phase, so you may not see the button today. Many of you will. So if you look in your agent dashboard today, you may very well see the new button that Kristen will use to launch us into the demonstration. Like with any new system, there are nuances. So we have built this in what we think is a pretty friendly, agent-friendly manner. But there are always, little nuances to systems, and that's why we offered this training today to get some of that information to you that'll make using it a lot better. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, but last thing I will say is I'm going to put a few PDFs available for you to download during this session. One of them is an FAQ sheet. I highly recommend scanning over that. If you have questions along the way, certainly want you to, pay the most attention to Kristen, because she's going to be giving you stuff that isn't necessarily in the FAQ sheet, but that is a searchable document. So you may find that some of the questions you'll have are answered there. And I would just say, because we have such a big group today, and we will certainly not be able to get to every single question, look there first. Certainly happy to answer questions after today's session if we don't get to them. And with that, Kristen, take it away.
Okay. Give me just a second to share my screen here. Okay, are we looking at the dashboard, Michael? Great. Okay, so when you log into jebrown.net and land on your dashboard, you'll now see this new tile under Bridge Specialty Personal Lines. And you're going to click that to access the platform. So there are 3 products that are available. We have HO3, DP3, and HO6. When you log in, you're going to land in the account hub, and this will reflect the 100 most recent policies or quotes that you've been working on. So you can search by status here. You can search by the insured's name, quote number, or you can dial it down further by clicking this advanced search option and looking at stuff that might be a little bit older. This will return more results for you. So you can do a search there. Clicking the eyeball icon will let you view an existing transaction that's already here. We're going to start by creating a new quote. Now I'm going to show you first what a decline looks like and how quickly you can get there. So I'm going to enter an address that I know is going to decline, and then we'll move into a true quote and how quickly you can find and issue a policy online. So the 3 products are available here. You may select whichever one best fits your customer's needs. There is no underwriting rule that would push a specific risk from DP3 to HO3. So it just is a matter of which coverages you prefer. And then we have HO6, obviously, for condo. So I'm going to move forward with an HO3. And Michael, feel free to chime in here if you have anything that I overlook as we go through. So the first thing will pop up, sorry, I'm going to go back here to the address. So you'll notice that I can do an address quick search here at the top, which is the function that I used. That's the best choice to make because this will ping a third-party API and verify that address. In the event that it's not able to find the address, you can manually enter it here. You can also manually enter the unit number. So this is specifically important for condos where you need to specify which unit it's for. And so you'll want to make sure you use the address quick search whenever possible, and then the manual entry only as needed. So we're going to start a submission. These are knockout questions. So if there's a yes to any of these, it's going to stop you and not allow you to continue, but it'll default to no. Okay, so we have, wherever possible, tried to default a lot of the information that's here for you to save some keystrokes. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a lag here. You'll notice date of birth is going to default for us. You can select individual, LLC, corporation, trust, estate. Any of those are acceptable, and the name field will adjust based on your selection there. You can quote up to 30 days into the future, so it's going to default to today's current date. Occupancy offerings are the same in all 3 products, so you can do primary, seasonal, secondary, tenant, and vacant. The tenant is acceptable for short-term rental as well as long-term rentals. This is going to pull in any data that it was able to retrieve from E2 value. So if it pulled a year built and square footage, that information will populate here. You can adjust it if you find that's not accurate. You'll notice these little tooltips throughout the system, and these are to prompt you of a field that may result in decline if you don't enter an acceptable value. So we've tried to provide some direction there. In this case, it needs to have updates within the last 40 years in order for it to be eligible. Protection class, you can use any third-party vendor that you typically use for looking at protection class. There is not a check here in the system. And then the replacement cost value, this is returned from E2 value. It is not an editable report, so this is just going to pull a basic cost estimation. You can enter an amount 10% under this returned value and any value over. What we do have a disclosure here is that if you are using a higher valuation, that you do need to have a replacement cost estimator in your file to substantiate that. We will never ask for a copy, but you will be asked to attest that you do have something to substantiate that. So coverages are going to default to standard percentages, but you can adjust those. There is not set percentages included, so we do that as just to save you some keystrokes, but you can adjust those up or down as needed. You'll notice that in many cases, unknown is an acceptable selection, and you will be able to get a rate and a bindable quote. Even if you have unknown, it will just default to the highest rate for that. So I'm going to click that indication. You'll notice I just had to enter a few fields of information there. And then because I know that we're going to get a decline, we should see that here on the next page. So that's how quickly I was able to check to see if this address is acceptable. Now I can click on this ineligibility details, and it's going to give me some really vague information why. In this case, it's specifically for wildfire, so the address was not acceptable for wildfire. If you see risk characteristics, that's typically age of home, lack of updates, something like that, that would kick it out. So you'll be able to quickly identify if it's something you can move forward with or not. Anything else on that, Michael, before I start a new quote that we're going to bind?
No, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to show you what how quickly we can issue and bind.
Kristen, while you tee that up, I will say just a note to everybody. I see questions coming in, and that's wonderful. We appreciate the engagement. We are going to save those to the end. And as I mentioned, because it's such a big group, I know we won't get to all of them. I did just put those, the FAQ and the eligibility highlights available in the chat window. So you should be able to see and grab those. And I see a couple of other hands up as well, but we may not be able to call on you. So forgive us for that. We'll follow up afterward. Go ahead.
And also your regional sales manager will be a great contact for you. So if there's anything we don't answer today in the call or on the FAQ, they would be a good contact for you after this. Okay, so now I've entered a few pieces of information. I was able to confirm, number one, that the location is eligible and get a premium indication. So in this phase, because we are defaulting behind the scenes many items, this is just a rate indication. If this looks good and you want to proceed to a formal quote, that's when you'll be able to finalize that rate, lock in a price, confirm all the underwriting, and then proceed to bind. So at this stage, it's not considered a bindable quote. You'll need to proceed to a formal quote. But it does give you some basic premium indication and taxes and fees. The reason at this point it would decline at this page is if the location address is not acceptable, if you didn't have updates, or if the home is too old. So we'll do up to 100 years old in HO3 and DP3 and up to 50 years old in HO6. And again, remember that updates are required in the last 40 years. Partial updates are fine, but they are required. Now there's a 2.5 million TIV limitation in HO3 and DP3, and there's a 1 million TIV limitation in HO6. And if you enter a coverage limit here, that it will calculate the total insured value, and it will alert you if you've exceeded that, ask you to reduce coverages before moving on. So I'm going to proceed to a formal quote. And this is going to basically open up an application. Any of the fields with an asterisk are required, so you can skip anything that is not required. Now there is an e-sign process at the end, so you do want to make sure that the insured's email address is correct, because that's where it's going to send their e-sign. Okay. And most of this information is going to pull over from the quote that we just did. Again, the defaults of unknown are acceptable, so you can leave those as is, or if you know the actual roof type, you can select the appropriate one. There is a roof exclusion option. So if the roof is over 25 years old, the roof exclusion will automatically apply, and it will adjust that here. Otherwise, you can update the roof or the updates for each of these and mark if it's partial or full. A few of these safeguard protection devices are not necessarily specific to California. So if you're not familiar with that term, just leave it as a no. So these are going to be the underwriting questions. They're going to default to acceptable values. You can mark yes, and then enter any additional information that's requested after that. We do accept multiple losses. The type of the loss and the value is what's going to determine eligibility. So in some cases, a certain type of loss might kick it out. In other cases, it might be the value of that loss. So if you mark the claims and enter that data here, again, you should be using a third-party tool like Clue in order to verify that ahead of time. There is not a Clue report built into this platform. You can add the mortgagee details at this point and additional insureds, or you can add that later when you actually go to bind it. So if you don't have it at this phase, that's fine. Now, we will do a completely electronic application. So all of the signatures are electronic, and also the surplus lines forms. So please make sure that you are entering your actual name and license number here, because that is what is going to be on the SL2 that we're going to file with the state, and you'll help save us some flags or rejections by putting in correct information. Now, we have defaulted that there were fewer than 3 admitted insurers that you were able to submit this to. If that's not the case and you did actually submit it, you're welcome to mark yes here and then enter each of those carriers' information just like you would on an SL2. So in this section, we can really dial into the coverage and limit options. And so this is where you can put in different values. The system in most cases will default to next best coverage. So for instance, if you put in a value that's too high that the carrier doesn't offer here, it will return the next best coverage on the actual quote. So just make sure that you're peeking over the returned quote to see what the return value was and make sure that that all matches. They do offer extended replacement cost, and you'll see some of these other optional things here. And we're going to hit calculate. So now I have a bindable quote. This is the total premium with taxes and fees. This is the reminder that next best coverage rules are in place. So you'll just want to peek down here. You can see a summary of the application. So all the questions and answers that you've just completed. You can look at coverages, and this is what the system has returned, not necessarily what you entered. So here's where you can see what the next best coverage limit was or whatever you input here. And then later, once we start generating documents, you'll be able to see those here. At this point of the quote, you could pull the E2 value report. So if you want to look that over and see how they came up with that, you can see that here. Now, this carrier is a little different in that their rates and will change based on capacity and demand. So the rate that I would get for this submission today might be different than a rate that I would get for the exact same submission next week if there was an increase in binding in that area. So it is important to save and generate your quote. That locks in your price for 30 days. And that's probably the biggest difference and why you'll see that we have quote versioning. So if you save and generate this quote, which is what I'm going to do now, it's going to email me a copy, and then I'll have the option to proceed to bind it. This is going to pull in my name and email address, the one that you use to log into our website, and it's going to automatically email it there. So it's going to confirm that it sent that email. And then momentarily, we'll also be able to see that here under the documents section. So if you did not get the email for some reason, or if you just wanted to pull it here quickly, you'll be able to see it here in just a moment. Let me get my email up. So you'll see that I now have the option to move forward and generate the e-signature to bind. I can also add and edit the mortgagee or additional interest information. So if I didn't have that at the time that I created the quote, I can add that before I bind it. I can view the policy forms list. So you can see all the applicable forms and exclusions that are attached here. And that will also be listed on the quote. Now, if I want to edit this quote, it's actually going to ask me to create a new version. And the reason why is that because of that rate lock. So if I create a new version a week from now, it might return a different rate, and I'll be able to make some changes there. In the event that you need to make some coverage changes and their new rate is higher, you could proceed with finding the original quote and then endorse those changes depending on what they are. There's a few fields we don't allow to be endorsed, and that is the type of insured, the occupancy, and the effective date. So I'm going to open up this email that was generated from the system. So here's the email that you're going to receive. Attached will be a copy of the quote. And you can forward this to your customer. Now this is going to be exactly almost an exact copy of what you'll receive when we go forward to bind it. Moving that over. Okay, so you'll have the quote proposal, which outlines the insurance carrier, all the coverage limits. It's a summary of everything that you've put into the system and a breakdown of all of the charges and fees. And then at the end, you'll also see the forms list. So you'll be able to see all of this in the quote. Okay, so I'm going to move forward with generating an e-sign to bind. So typically you would be exiting out and then coming back later and retrieving that. So when you're ready to bind, you're going to click Generate e-sign. It's going to allow you to alter the effective date. So it's going to default to current date. But if you want to choose a date in the future, you can go up to the expiration date of that quote. So remember that the quote is valid 30 days from when you originally created it. We have the expiration date of the quote listed on the actual PDF document. So if you're unsure, you can view that. So I'm going to send this for signature. That was the insured's email address. You have a chance to alter that there if you want. And you can see that the status will change to bind signature pending. So I'm going to get an email from HelloSign, and I'll show you what that looks like. This is something I do get a lot of questions about, and there is a cadence to these signatures. So the agent will receive their request to sign first. Once you complete your signature, then the insured will get their request to sign, not before. Anytime you resend the link to sign, that whole process starts over. So this is what the email is going to look like. It's from Dropbox Sign, and we're going to do review and sign. It's going to open up a new pop-up. In the event that your customer or you are not receiving the emails, typically what we'll do is have you whitelist that email address, look for it in your spam folder if you need to. Okay, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bigger size for you guys. All right, so we're going to hit get started. Now we have the option to, and this is the agent signature, is you're going to draw or type out your signature, and you have the option to insert it individually on every single form, or you can insert it everywhere. So I'm going to do insert everywhere. There we go. So you'll see this is just an attestation that's at the end of the quote document that you've already reviewed. And then we'll have, along with this, the E2 value and the surplus lines forms and the mandatory earthquake offer. So everything that requires signature will be here. We will not ask you for anything outside of this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue and agree to the terms and conditions. And I get a confirmation screen saying that I have completed my signature. You will also get an email saying that you've completed your signature, as you will when the customer completes their signature. So now that the agent has completed their e-sign, the insured is going to get a copy, and it's going to look exactly the same. So the insured is now going to click through the e-sign process. Now, there is no way to bind this outside of the e-signature process. So we don't do paper applications. We cannot complete that on your behalf. So we do ask that you go through the full e-sign. So now the insured is going to go through the same process, and same thing. They can either insert their signature individually or everywhere within the document, and we're asking them to sign the application, surplus lines notification, and earthquake waiver. The insured will also get confirmation that they've completed their signature, and as soon as both of those are done, it immediately issues the policy. So there is no further action that you need to take at that point. The e-signature will generate the bind. You'll also get an email confirmation letting you know that everyone has signed, and there will be a copy of the application, the fully signed application attached to that. And those will also be saved here on the platform. So I'm just going to refresh this page. It sometimes just takes a minute for that status to update to policy in force. So I'm going to show you the resend e-sign link. One important thing to note is that we have a 72-hour window for both parties to complete their signature in order to honor this effective date. There is no backdating allowed at all. J.E. Brown does not have the authority to backdate either. So whenever you resend this link, the clock starts over and it will default to current date unless you choose a future effective date. So both parties have to complete within 72 hours in order to honor that date. If they do not, the link will expire and will ask you to resend it. And again, it'll start over, so with a current effective date. Okay, so I'm gonna give that one more minute to refresh. And I'll show you, here's the email that I received saying that everyone has signed, and then attached to that is a copy of the full application and all the signed forms along with the e-signature certificate. A copy of this will also be stored here on the platform under documents. So as soon as this system updates, you will see here the signed new business forms. The policy will also populate here. You can retrieve the quote from here as well, and you can either download it, email it, or just view it. And same with the E2 value. All of these will be saved here. So I'm going to pull up another policy that I've already bound earlier, just so we can keep moving forward. Oh, here we go. Now it updated. Okay, so now the policy is in force. I can see the policy number. I'm also going to receive an email here shortly that's confirming that the policy was issued. It will have all the policy documents attached to it. We're almost there. You'll see that you can also endorse or cancel the policy, and you can do that immediately after the policy is issued. So I'm going to show you what an endorsement looks like here. So you can choose an endorsement effective date. It has to be sequential, so there's no out of sequence endorsements. So this calendar will be open to the most recent transaction, whether that be the effective date or the last time you endorse the policy. You can add a brief description here and then start endorsement. And you'll see that most of the fields are going to be open to you for editing. Anything that's in gray is not going to be available to edit by endorsement. That would require a cancellation and rewriting. So the type of insured or the occupancy. So I'm going to move forward. Now, because we just issued this today, it's only showing me today as the effective date that I can change. But had this been a policy that I issued last week, I do have the ability to request a backdated endorsement. In that case, it will just refer to an underwriter first for them to review. If it's something simple like a mortgage change, likely it'll be approved with no further questions. But we ask that you not backdate coverage related endorsements unless you have some sort of supporting documentation that you can send. Okay, I'm just going to put some dummy information in here so we can see what that looks like. So I'm going to add a mortgagee and then maybe change the coverage. And so this is going to first check that the new parameters that I've input are acceptable. And then it will break down any premium difference that there would be. And it's going to show me the old value and the new value. So I can review this to make sure the effective date is correct. I can see what has changed here. And I can get a breakdown of the difference in premium that's associated with this endorsement. And so if everything looks good, then I can go ahead and approve the endorsement. If I'm not ready to issue it yet, I want to talk to the customer, I can exit. I can come back later and retrieve that endorsement. Or I can reject it and say, never mind, I don't want to move forward with this. You can also view any forms changes that are associated with that. So if any of the forms had changed, for instance, you were removing or adding a coverage or an exclusion, that would be listed there. So if everything looks good, I can go ahead and approve the endorsement. And anything that you're binding current date or in the future, you have authority to do that. So it will actually issue the endorsement. You'll get a copy via email. And it will also be saved here to the documents section for retrieval in case you need to go back in there later. In the meantime, I did receive the policy via email, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. Excuse me. So this is confirming that the policy was in fact issued and the policy number. If I open up the attachment, it's the full policy jacket. And we ask that you forward this to any interested parties. The agency bill invoice is going to follow separately from our invoicing team, and you can expect that within 7 to 10 business days, usually sooner. So we ask that you bill and collect the full annual premium, and then you can remit the net amount due on the invoice to us within 20 days of issuance. So this does remind you about agency bill due dates and when you can expect to receive that invoice. And then you'll see you have a full declaration page and recap of all the coverages and premium that were on the quote. And then again, you can retrieve that from the documents section if you needed to come here later and pull up a copy. We're still waiting for that endorsement to come through, but we'll receive that momentarily. You'll notice you also have the option to cancel the policy. And this works exactly the same as the endorsement. So you would just put the cancellation date, it'll calculate return premium, and you can either move forward or you can come back later. The policy status will change as you do those. In the event that it's a referred endorsement, it will change to referred, endorsement referred, or cancellation referred. And you should hear from our underwriting team within a day or so. And that status will update once they issue the endorsement or cancellation. You'll get an email confirmation with a copy, or if they reject it or if they need some additional information, you'll also receive an email in that regard. Michael, anything else that we are missing here?
I don't think we're missing anything. We do have a lot of questions though. So what I've been doing is sort of monitoring those and lumping them into categories where I think we can efficiently answer. So
okay, great.
You want to jump to questions?
Sure, I think so. I think we basically covered system functionality here. So let's go ahead with the questions. Do you want me to stop sharing my screen or keep it up in case we need to navigate?
Yeah, I would say keep it up just in case for the time being.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, in case you joined late, there are two documents. One is call it a highlights or coverage highlights PDF in the chat. You should be able to open the chat window, download that PDF, as well as an FAQ sheet. Now, a lot of the questions that are coming through are addressed on that FAQ sheet. If you're unable to download that for some reason, we will be sending this out after today's meeting. So keep an eye out for future emails. We're also going to be doing a little bit of a, call it tips and tricks series, where we show you, some of these nuances. So this will not be the last opportunity for you to get more familiar with the system. As we move into questions, there are a few big categories here. One of them is billing, and I know you've just talked about this, but some folks may have joined late or maybe just didn't catch it the first time. So as we look at the billing, this is full pay, no mortgagee bill, right? So you'll be expected to collect payment. And then on the plus side, someone's asking about, broker fee. How do we do that? You can certainly collect a broker fee. All you'll need to remit to us is, the premium due to the company, taxes, fees, etc. And so you can collect a fee. You can retain your 10% commission up front. So that's a benefit. You get paid a little bit sooner. One of the other categories here is around the issuance. We'll call it the issuance category. So a couple of questions about editing the effective date.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have that option when you go to generate the e-sign, it is going to ask you to confirm the effective date that you're looking for. So let me just get through another one here. Hopefully this one is going to work. So when you hit generate e-sign, a pop-up appears, and you have the ability at that point to enter an effective date of today and into the future. But again, it has to be before the expiration date of the quote, and also confirm the insured's email address. So those two things will happen. So I'm going to click generate e-sign, and this is every time you generate. So if you resend the e-sign link, it will ask you again, what's the effective date you're looking for? No backdating. And is this the insured's email address? Your email address is automatically populated based on how you logged into SSO. If you're unsure how far into the future you can bind based on your quote, just go back to your quote document. Let me pull up a copy of that, and I'll show you where the expiration date on the quote lives. So we have it pretty big and bold on the first page of the quote document so that you always know. And the system will actually stop you. It won't allow you to generate the e-sign if you've reached the expiration date of that quote. Okay, so right here on the front page, quote valid until, and it has the date listed here. There's a reminder, policy must be effective on or before that date, and that's in order to honor that rate. One tip that we received from an agent was that sometimes escrow closing can be a bit fickle. And so if they're binding a policy and then later need to change the effective date, you're needing to flat cancel and reissue. If you're creating a new quote later, you could have an issue where the premiums don't match. So what they suggested is before you bind, creating another version of that quote in the event that you need to come back and bind that other version at a later date. So that was a tip that we had.
Folks, let me tell you how good Kristen is here. She just anticipated the exact next question I was going to go to. Yeah. So the question was about, editing after issuance, the effective date, and how to address the escrow process. So perfect. Thank you. As part of that same issuance category, the SL2 was asked about, and I know that that's completed as part of the application process. So we've sort of woven this into the application. As Kristen mentioned, we've defaulted the reasons there, but you can edit that. The other issuance related question is the 72-hour e-signature process and whether that applies if a future effective date, say a 4/1 date, is chosen. I believe it does, right? So if you issue today with a 4/1, you still got that same 72 hours, so you can resend it, and I think the clock starts over, but you've got to get it signed.
True.
Yeah.
And I would say in general, it's a good practice to give yourself a little leeway and bind a little bit further out so that you're not on the last day trying to complete the e-sign process. Like I said, there's no workaround for backdating, so it's not possible. So just make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get that finished, the insured as well.
Okay, so there is one other issuance question here related. What happens if payment is not received? Will policy flat cancel, or will agency be on the hook for the premium?
So you may request flat cancellation. So let's say here's what will happen. We will send you an agency bill invoice, and you have 20 days to pay that. 7 to 10 days after we send you the invoice, we'll start following up with you. Hey, remember you have payment due. It'll be reflected on your commission statement. Once we get past that 20 days, then that's when we give you a final notice and say, we either need to receive payment or we're going to request cancellation for non-pay. We are legally required to send out a 10-day advance notice for cancellation for non-payment. And in the event of doing that, there could be a balance due of when the policy was enforced until that cancellation date. So if escrow really did truly fall through or the insured went elsewhere, I suggest that you go in and cancel the policy flat. If you have the authority from the insured to do that, that will just wipe out any premium due on your statement and avoid that altogether.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'll just go through a couple quickly here. So carrier is Great Lakes Insurance SE with an A+ rating. I know that was kind of quickly shown on screen, but a couple of people asked about that. So A-rated. Let's see. Short-term rental occupancy came up several times, and the answer to that is yes, we can accommodate short-term rental. In terms of which occupancy you choose, that's going to be up to you to assess that. So again, we've got DP3, HO3, and HO6. If you're dealing with a condo, pick the HO6. If you've got a standard, single family rental, go with tenant. But yeah, we can accommodate short-term rental.
When you select tenant occupancy, it'll ask you for the length, and that is daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. So you can select whichever is applicable. We do get a lot of questions on mixed occupancy if it's their second home and they also rent it out. And that's where it's up to your discretion what's the best usage description based on the amount of usage in each of those categories. And that's how you would select it there.
Yep. Okay. Let's see, question about earthquake offer. And I don't know if we actually have covered how that works, Kristen. So I think that's a good one. I don't know if that's in our FAQ.
Yeah, so it is actually listed on the optional coverages. So I'll see if I can get into another application. There we go. So this one might be. So on the optional coverages, earthquake is an option that you can select there. I will say that the premium is a static amount and it's quite high. So really it would make the most sense to use one of our other standalone earthquake markets, and you can contact your RSM if you're not familiar with those platforms. But you'll see here under optional coverages, earthquake is a yes or no. The earthquake waiver does print with the application. I think the standard premium is $125,000, regardless of what limit you choose. So I don't expect that anyone would ever accept earthquake coverage. So if you do have a customer that's interested, please reach out to your RSM and we can help you find another more affordable market.
Yep. So Martha, great question about that e-signature process. If you've selected no here to the earthquake coverage, it's just the acknowledgement at that point that they're signing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question about premium finance. Can we premium finance with our in-house financing companies? Technically, yes. I think we discourage that if possible, but yeah, it is possible.
We are going to limit reinstatements after non-payment. So we will allow one cancellation for non-payment and one subsequent reinstatement. And after that, we will not reinstate the policy. So we do discourage premium financing if you're able to.
Yep. A couple other quick ones and we'll wrap up here today, guys. And again, as I said, this will not be the last communication you receive on this. We will be sending out lots more information. So please don't be angry with us if we didn't get to your question. Folks are asking about the products. So no DIC, no manufactured homes at this time. This is, anything could change, but for today, we're talking about condo, rental, homeowners. Minimum earned premium is 25%, right?
Plus taxes and fees.
Plus taxes and thank you. So yes, there is minimum earned premium, like most of surplus lines policies. Let's see. I think that's all the big ones.
And that'll be calculated if you go in to request cancellation, other than flat cancellation, which obviously returns everything. But if you do a midterm cancellation, it will take that into account for you as well.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. That is a good point. Okay. So I'm going to wrap us up today. Again, I see a ton of questions we didn't get to, but I will direct you to the FAQ sheet that's available for your download right now. One last time, we will also be sending that out in email, I believe early next week, along with the highlight sheet. So the two that are available there will be coming to an email if for some reason you weren't able to grab them. I would also say there were some people asking about how to get to the product, where can they learn more? There is an article at the very top of our homepage. In fact, if you just go to jebrown.net right at the homepage. So if you've bookmarked another page, you'll have to just click the logo on the top left, take you back to the homepage. There's an article right there. It's our front page feature, and you can click through to learn more and to go straight to the dashboard where you'll find the button to begin a quote. So thank you all for joining us. We're very excited about this product. It was a lot of work. We hope that it satisfies some of the demand that we know is out there. We thank you for your business and your partnership. Please reach out to your regional sales manager for one-on-one or more hands-on training. Happy to do that. And yeah, so let's get right into some business. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.